Hey friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel Tech Creators. My name is Jumal, and today in this video we are going to build a pixel art generator. So I have explained everything in detail in this video. So make sure to watch this video till the end so that you understand everything. After completing this video, you can also add your own features to this pixel art generator. Here we have created a new folder called pixel art generator and opened it up in VS Code. Now, first of all, we will create index.html file. We type exclamation and then press enter. Then we get this template. So first of all, we will clear this title and change this title to pixel art generator. So first of all, we will create a div and give it a class of slider. And let's create a label. So this label will be for width range and label will be grid width. Now we will create an input. This input will be of type range and we don't get name, so we will remove the name. And for ID, we will put width dash range. And we want to set its minimum value to 1 and maximum value to 35. And we will create a span. So this span will show the actual value of our input. So it will be for now 00 and we will give it an ID of width dash value. Now we will create another div and we will also give this a class of slider. We will create a label and this will be for width height and it will be named as grid height. And we will create another input of type range and we will remove the name and ID will be, so this will not be with height but it will be height range and ID will be same height range. We want to set its minimum value to also 1 and its maximum value to also be 35. We will create a span for this also, so it will be by default 00 and we will give it a ID of height dash value. We will create a button and the label will be create grid. We will have another button and it will be clear grid. Create a input of type color and we don't need the name property. We will give it a ID of color dash input. We will create one more button and it will be erase and one more button and it will be called paint. So for create grid button, we will give it a ID of submit dash grid. For clear grid button, we will give it ID of clear grid. For erase button, we will give it a ID of erase dash btn. And for paint button, we will give it a ID of paint dash btn. We will create another div and put all of these inside that div. And let's give it a class of option dash wrapper. So opt dash wrapper. We'll create one more div and put all these sliders div inside that div. And let's give it a class of opt dash wrapper. Let's create one more div and put this opt wrapper and both of these opt wrappers inside that div. And we will give it a class of options. Now we will create one more div. This will have a class of wrapper. So our inputs are done. Now we will create our one more div and we will give it a class of container. Okay. So this container div will also be within the wrapper div. So just take this container inside the wrapper so that options and container, both of these divs are at the same level and are inside the wrapper div. Now we will create a new file called index.js. So now we will work on the functionalities of our application. So we are done with the structure with the help of HTML. Now the functionalities, and we will link our index.js with our HTML with the help of script tags, and we will give it a src of index.js. So we will first of all create a container variable. So let container equals to document.querySelector and it will be a class called container. Now we will create another variable called grid button document.getElementById and the ID will be submit dash grid. Clear grid button variable will be equal to document.getElementById and ID will be clear dash grid. Grid width variable will be equals to document dot get element by id with dash range. Same as grid width, we need grid height and it will be document dot get element by id and it will be height dash range. Now we need access to our color button, so document dot document dot get element by id color dash input. Now for erase button, we need document dot get element by id erase dash btn. For paint button, it will be document dot get element by id paint dash btn. Now for changing our width value, we need document dot get element by id with dash value. For accessing our height value, we need document dot get element by id height dash value. So we will declare an event variable and it will be an object and it will have two properties. It will first will be mouse and second will be touch. So for mouse we will have down as mouse down. For move it will be mouse move. For up it will be mouse up. For touch we will have down as touch start. So all of these events will get cleared as we move further into the script. So just be with me. For move we will have touch move and remove that semicolon, use comma. And for up, it will be touch end. Now we will declare device type as empty. Now we will declare device type as empty string and draw will be initially false. Erase will also be initially false. Is touch device is a function and we will call is touch device just below it. So we will use try and catch block. Inside try, we will say document.create event, touch event, and we will set device type will be equal to touch, and we will return true. If not that, then we will go to catch and we will set device type to mouse. And from here we will return false. So for clear grid button, we will add an event listener and it will be of type click. We will write a callback function. So it will set container dot inner HTML to empty strings. So with the help of this, our grid will get clear. For erase button also, we will add an event listener and it will be click and the callback function. It will set erase to true. For paint button, we will also add an event listener and it will be on click and the callback function and it will set erase to false. For grid width, we want to add an event listener of click and the callback function will be with value dot inner html will be equal to grid width dot value. And if it is less than 9, since we want to show double digits and if it is less than 9 then it's a single digit, so we want to append 0 before 9, so we will say backticks 0 then dollar and it will be grid with dash value. So it will be 09, 07, 06 and not just 976. If it is greater than 9, then we want to just show the value. So it will be grid with dot value. For grid height, we want to add a event listener on click and callback function. We want to apply the same logic of grid with value. So here it will be height value dot inner HTML grid height dot value. If it is less than 9, then backticks 0 appended and dollar height with grid height dot value. And if it is greater than 9, then we just want to show grid height dot value. And on window load, so we will window dot on load call a function and we will set grid height dot value to be 0 and grid width dot value to be 0. So initially both of them will be 0. Drag your index.html to your browser to open it up in your browser and let's have a look what we have got till now. So here we have grid width, grid height, two sliders, and we have create grid, and it's working perfectly fine. So it's 11, 12, 6, 13, 23. Yeah, it's working. Values are changing properly. Cool. Maximum values are 35. We are create grid, clear grid, and its color, erase, paint. So yeah, it's working perfectly fine. So currently they won't be doing anything, but yeah, let's continue our code. So we will add grid button and event listener. So add event listener and it will be on click and the callback function. We will set container.inner HTML to be empty string so that we have our container cleared and we will set count to be equal to 0. So this will be used later for IDs of all of the individual divs. So we will write a for loop I equals to zeros I is less than height, grid height dot value, and I plus plus. So this will be the number of rows we want, and we will increase our count by 2. You can increase it by 1, by 3, by any number which you want. This will be just for individual IDs, and IDs need to be different. So for making the number different, you can use anything. And we will create a div, and it will be document.createElement, and this will be of type div. And in that divs class list, we want to add some classes like grid row, which we will create later on in our styles.css. So just add it for now. We will create another for loop, and it will be j equals to 0, j is less than grid width dot value, and j plus plus. So this will be for the number of columns we want. Inside that, we will increase the count by 1 or 2, whichever you want. I am increasing by 2. And we will create a column. So let column equals to, so column will be equals to document dot create element, and it will be of type div. So for that columns class list, we want to add grid call, which is a class which we will create later on in styles.css. And for that column, we want to set its attribute also. So ID will be grid backticks grid call dollar the variable count. Okay, so with the help of this, we will have individual IDs. And for the column, we will add an event listener, and it will be events at index device type dot down. And for the callback function, so if device type is mouse, then it will be mouse down. If device type is touch, then it will be touch dot down. Okay, and inside callback function, we will have draw to true, and if erase is true, then we will set column dot style, that is called dot style dot background color, to be equal to transparent. Else if erase is not true, then we will set call dot style, that is column style dot background color, to be equal to color button dot value. For column dot add event listener, so we are done with down. We will go for move. So events at index device type dot move, and for its callback function, we will pass a parameter e, and element id. So we will get this element id from document dot get element by id. So we will get the element id from document dot element from point, so from where the touch has started. So it will be, so if it is not a touch device, then we will say e dot client x, else e dot touch at index 0 dot client x. And if it is not a touch device, then we will say e dot client y, else it's e dot touch at index 0 dot client y. So we got the x and y coordinates, and from that point we want to get the element and its dot id. So with the help of this, we got the element id from wherever you are touching. And after that, we will pass this element id to our checker function. So we will implement this checker function after this. So we are done with down and move. Now we will write for column dot add event listener, events at index device type dot up. And for callback function, we want to set draw to false. And after that, we want to append these columns to our div. So we will say div dot append child column, and we will append this div to our container. So container dot append child div. So we first created a column, then we appended it to a div, and we appended that div to the whole container. Now we will implement the checker function. So it will take element ID, and it will say grid columns to be equal to document dot query selector all, and we want to get all of the, it will be class grid call. So now we got all of the columns inside our grid columns. So we will reverse over all of the columns. So grid columns dot for each element, if element id is equals to element dot id, and if draw is true, and if it is not erasing, that means we are drawing and it is and we are not erasing. We are moving our finger, we are moving our mouse, but we are not erasing. That means we are drawing. So we will say element dot style dot background color to be equal to color button dot value. Else if we are drawing and we are erasing. Okay, so we are moving our mouse, we are touching our screen, but we are not drawing. That means we are erasing. So we will set element dot style background color to be equal to transparent. Now we have completed our structure and our functionalities. Now we'll go to our styles.css. So since this video is getting much more longer, so for making this video shorter and easier, I will just explain some important things only in a styles.css because I think you already know all of these things. So for everything, we are setting padding margin to 0, box sizing is border box, font family is monospace, and we are giving a background to color to our body. And for wrapper class, we are setting its background color with position transform to -50% and -50%. And we are setting top left paddings and some little paddings of 40 pixels on top and bottom, 20 pixels on left and right. And border radius will be 8 pixels. For label, we are setting display to be block. So we have created our span and so for span, we have given position of relative font size of 22, bottom of -1 pixels. For option wrapper, OPT wrapper, we have display flag, justify content, space between margin, and some gap. For our buttons, we want their background color to be green, border and border radius, and we have given the color of white. So for input of type color, we have set WebKit appearance to none, mouse appearance to none, and background color as transparent. So we have set some width, height, and border, and cursor will be pointer. For input of type color, we are setting its WebKit color swatch as what. For WebKit color swatch, we are setting border radius and some border. And for mouse color swatch, we are setting some border radius and also some border. And here is our grid column class, which we were using in our index.js. So here its height will be 1 em, width will be 1 em, and border will be 1 pixel, solid of hash DDD color. And our class of grid row, and it will be display of flex. And the media query of media only screen, and max width is 768 pixels. So for 768 pixels, we want to set grid column height as 0.8 em and width as 0.8 em. So if max width is 768 pixels, then we are setting. And we will link our style.css to our index.html with the help of style sheet. So href style.css. So yeah, let's have a look at our application. So here is our application.